Today, we're diving into a story about perfection, pressure, and a single moment that completely redefined a sport. And it all kicks off with a number that, well, at first glance, made absolutely no sense. So picture it, the 1976 Montreal Olympics. This score flashes across the screen after a gymnastics routine. 1.00. To anyone watching, it looked like a total disaster, right? Maybe a technical glitch? But it wasn't a mistake. It was history. So that's the big question here. How on earth can the highest possible achievement in a sport show up looking like a near-total failure? To get to the bottom of that, we need to meet the young woman who was so good she literally broke the system. All right, let's get into it. Her name is Nadia Comăneci. And at just 14 years old, this Romanian gymnast walked onto the world's biggest stage and did something that was, quite frankly, beyond what anyone even thought was possible. On that day, during her routine on the uneven bars, she hit the absolute holy grail of gymnastics. A perfect 10. No mistakes, zero deductions, just flawless execution. It had never, ever been done before in the history of the Olympics. And here's the reason for that bizarre 1.00 score, and it's just incredible. The scoreboard maker Omega had been told that programming the board for a 4-digit score, like 10.00, was a waste of time. Why? Because getting a perfect 10 was considered an impossibility. The board could only show 3 digits, so the only way the judges could flash that perfect score was to display 1.00. Nadia wasn't just better than everyone else, she was better than the technology built to measure greatness. But you know, a performance like that doesn't just happen overnight. Her journey to that moment of perfection started years before, in a place that was a world away from the Olympic spotlight. Nadia was born in a town called Onești in Romania, and from what I've read, she was so full of energy as a little kid that her mom put her in gymnastics just to try and channel it all. The real turning point, though, came when she was 6. The now legendary coach Béla Károlyi just happened to see her doing cartwheels in her schoolyard and knew, right then and there, that he'd found someone special. She was immediately brought into his elite gymnastics school, a place literally designed to create champions. And wow, her rise was just meteoric. By the time she was 9, she was the youngest gymnast ever to win the Romanian nationals. At 13, she just completely dominated the European championships. She wasn't just a rising star, she was already one of the best gymnasts on the planet before she was even a teenager. Which brings us right back to the main event, the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal. This is where all that hard work and incredible potential was about to explode onto the world scene. And here she is. Just look at that focus, that grace. What you're seeing here isn't just incredible athletic skill. It's a level of difficulty and pure precision that the sport had simply never seen before. The crowd, the judges, the people watching at home, everyone was just completely mesmerized. And that routine on the uneven bars, it led to this, the first perfect 10 in the history of the Olympics. But what's even crazier is that this single perfect moment, well, it wasn't a one-time thing. Not at all. That first 1.00 that flashed up on the scoreboard was just the beginning. Over the course of the Montreal Games, Nadia would earn 6 more perfect 10s. That's a total of 7. She didn't just break the barrier of perfection once, she completely shattered it. Over and over again. And remember, she did all of this when she was just 14 years old. That made her the youngest all-around Olympic champion in history. And you know what? That's a record that will almost certainly never be broken, because the rules were changed later to say competitors have to be at least 16. So after Montreal, Nadia was a global superstar. But that fame, that success, it came with a really heavy price. Back home in communist Romania, her celebrity status quickly turned into a kind of prison. She was basically living 2 different lives. To the rest of the world, she was this celebrated sports icon, winning awards left and right. But back home, the Romanian government saw her as a valuable state asset, something to be controlled. They gave her the title Hero of Socialist Labor, but that honor really just meant she was under intense government surveillance. And things got a lot worse in 1981 when her coaches, the Károlyis, defected to the United States. The Romanian regime panicked. They were terrified their national hero would follow them. So they took away her passport, forbade her from traveling, and watched her every move. These are Nadia's own words, and they just hit so hard. They really capture what her life had become. The perfect gymnast was trapped. The very achievements that made her famous had become the bars of a golden cage. So for years, she lived under this crushing pressure. But then, in 1989, just weeks before the Romanian regime would collapse, she decided to perform one last, and by far her most dangerous, routine, a desperate escape to freedom. Her escape was this incredibly risky, multi-country journey. On a freezing November night, she and a few others fled, walking for hours in the dark through treacherous conditions to sneak across the border into Hungary. From there, it was a tense trip through Austria before she could finally get on a plane to the United States and start over. And that escape, it was the start of a whole new chapter. Once she was in America, she was finally able to build a life for herself, reconnect with her sport, but on her own terms, and create a legacy that goes way beyond those perfect scores. Just look at the contrast here. On the left, you've got that intensely focused 14-year-old girl who just blew the world away. And on the right, you see the confident, amazing woman she became, a global ambassador for gymnastics and a true symbol of resilience. She ended up marrying Bart Conner, an American Olympic gymnast she'd actually met all the way back in 1976. Together, they run a really successful gymnastics academy. But she's also stayed deeply connected to her home, holding dual citizenship and supporting charities in Romania, including a children's clinic in Bucharest that she helped fund. I think her impact is just so perfectly captured by this quote, written decades later. It reminds us that her performance in Montreal is still the benchmark, the standard that everyone else is still chasing. So let's end on this thought. Nadia Comăneci gave the world a moment of pure, undeniable perfection. But her full journey reminds us that achievements like that don't happen in a vacuum. Her story really makes you ask, what is the true price of perfection? And what does it really mean to find freedom after you've already achieved it?